Hey, it's Mike Hambright with FlipNerd.com. Welcome back for another exciting VIP interview where I interview some of the most successful real estate investing experts and entrepreneurs in our industry to help you learn and grow. Today, I'm joined by my friend Randy Lawrence. Randy operates Integrity Home Buyers in Florida and has learned to evolve, maybe learn the hard way, how to evolve his business in a market as volatile as Florida's been over the past 10 years. And he's learned some great lessons that he's going to share with us today that we all can learn from. He's given me a little bit of a sneak peek of what we're going to talk about today. So it's exciting. He's going to share with us the ingredients of success in real estate investing. It's going to be a good show. Stick with us here. Before we get started, though, let's take a moment to recognize our featured sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Hey, Randy, welcome to the show.
Hey, Mike, good to see you. Good to be here with you today.
Yeah. I'm excited to talk about what we're going to talk about today because I think, especially for people that have been around for a while and been through some different markets, they've learned how to adapt to pros and cons. And I think probably you learn a whole lot about yourself, right? About what makes you tick, what's important to you, what's important to your family, and all those things. So I know you've got some great things to share with us today. But hey, before we get started, though, why don't you tell us about yourself and so we can learn a little bit more about who you are.
Absolutely. Well, our present focus, we have a full short sale mitigation company. We have 3 to 4 renovation crews going on our rehab business at any given time. We probably have anywhere between 15 to 20 properties in renovation process at a given time. And then we also have a wholesale component of the business that we have developed as well.
Yep.
That's as it stands today.
Yeah.
Some of the things I share with the listeners has kind of come out from where I came from. And prior to the crash in 2008, we had probably a $5 million company, 44 rental units scattered all over the place, renovations going, and I had our hands in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And it really didn't make for the best recipe, I think. And so that's where I kind of learned some of the things I want to share today that have then now been able to help us accomplish the results that we're achieving and receiving today.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think a lot of newer real estate investors, people that are newer, they're willing to do, and I'm sure you were the same way. I was the same way.
Sure.
It's like at the end of the day, to get to a certain point in this business, you have to be an opportunist. If there's an opportunity to make money, to monetize a deal, you'll do it almost no matter what it is. I mean, ethics and things like that aside, obviously. But if there's a way to make money, and then you get to a point to where you're like, this isn't scalable if I chase every little possible thing out there.
Correct.
And you have to really kind of get focused and start turning deals away that other people would probably do just because you're trying to manage volume.
Yeah, well, and I think, the thing that I would say for me and really one of the key principles for anybody if they want to achieve great success is to get real true clarity and focus about what they want to achieve. And I remember my wife, she came to me and she's like, holy crap, you got all this stuff going on. You've got this ministry stuff you're doing as well. You've got this vein, this vein, this vein. And it's like, she's like, you need to get focused on the one thing. And really that was a challenging thing to me to begin to really look at like, okay, what do I want to really achieve? What do I want to make financially? What do I want my life to look like?
Right.
Because like in an honest way, when we had all those rental properties and all these rehabs going on, and then the market's starting to decline, it's like, I mean, my life was not what I wanted it to be.
Right. Right.
And so I had to think about that and to begin to get clear, and then also look at, which a lot of people don't do this, but to then look at the context of what's going on in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And what really has the best opportunity to present value and for me to be able to work with and achieve the results I want.
Right.
And so in Florida at that time for me, I could see the handwriting on the wall of the wave that was coming. And so that's where we really focused in on short sales. We began to shut down our renovations. We got rid of the rentals and exclusively focused on developing a short sale mitigation company because of recognizing this kind of crest of things that are coming.
Sure. That's probably one lesson. I don't know if this is on your list, but in terms of just people that are listening is, I think as a real estate investor, you've always got to be kind of trying to look around the corner as to what's coming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are cycles in this business that are somewhat predictable in that they are going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, again, like so many times, whether it's the new investor that's looking to chase after any dollar that could be made, or if it's the seasoned person that's just comfortable doing what they've done,
right?
You know, you're missing out on that component. I think of gaining true clarity entails that you have to be looking ahead.
Right.
Like some of the things that we're working on now, it's already in anticipation of what's taking place and what we're forecasting over the next 2 to 5 years. And that's something that I failed to do probably prior to 2008. And then, 2008, when everything just kind of fell off the cliff, I was forced to begin to look at things in a more strategic way.
Right.
Well,
talk a little bit about maybe get into the kind of the warm and fuzzy side of, we're going to talk about a lot of tips and guidance on how to kind of prepare for success and plan for success and be successful. Talk about I think a lot of real estate investors, especially a lot of newer people, with that same mentality of I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make money. There gets to you do get to a point, I know I have, and I'm guessing you have, where you do whatever it takes to basically benefit your family, right?
Yeah.
And but then there gets to a point to where maybe your success, I'm doing air quotes here for those of you that are listening, starts to impact the very thing you were fighting for in the beginning, which was providing for your family. So sometimes like you may be successful, everybody thinks you're successful by every measure. Financially, you're successful, but you question, am I really successful? Like, is it all about this? It's not all about the money. You and I know that.
No.
So maybe share some of your thoughts on, in terms of getting clear of what you want, just the emotional side of what's important.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Mike, because again, I mean, for you or I, when we're talking about this, I would say we take that in the context of a given, but most people, when you look at just getting clear or gaining clarity, it's like, okay, I want to make $100,000 or I want to make 500 or whatever your number is. And that's all that it looks like. But I think that the bigger picture is that you've got to look at your life as a whole and see, it's like, okay, so why do I want to go into real estate to start with, or why am I in real estate? And maybe it is to provide a better life financially. But also, I would say that part of that would be is that your intention is that you want to be able to have some freedom to spend time with your family, or to be able to travel or take vacation. Like before the interview, I know you and I were just talking, catching up, and I said, yeah, this past year, my family and I spent 2 months on vacation, traveling and enjoying things. Here in March, we're going to see the whale watching in Hawaii for 2 weeks.
Great.
And, but that's all part of gaining clarity of design of what I wanted my life to look like, and with God's help, being able to see what's possible. And then also that helps to begin enabling you to rightly choose what directions you want to go and what opportunities are meant for you.
Right.
See, because so many people are chasing or grabbing every opportunity, and then once they've got a hold of all these opportunities, it's stretched them and it's taken them where they didn't want to go, because there was no real plan, no real clarity about getting to, point B. If you don't know where point B is, you're going to have one heck of a time getting there. That's why people often end up way over here off in left field and going, how in the heck did I get here?
Right.
And so, I mean, I guess each person, it's going to be different. What's really important to you? For me, I look at like my wife, my daughter who's 10, being able to spend time with them, having time to invest in some of the ministry things that we do. Those things are important. And then achieving certain financial results. I mean, there's nothing wrong with making money. Sometimes people get all like, holier than thou or whatever, and it's like, hey, making money and contributing value to help people to make money, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right, absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
Figuring that out.
Yeah. So I think you're going to share kind of a framework here of what it takes to be successful as a real estate investor. Yeah. And I think you said that kind of starts with, some things we've been alluding to here is just kind of having the right mindset, right?
Yeah, you got to have the right mindset in first knowing that you're going to be able to succeed, taking that focus and believing in yourself, but also, as we just talked about, is gaining true clarity and spending the time to sit down and to figure out that direction. Because again, with even in the shade of real estate, there's even guys you've interviewed, some are doing subject to, some are doing wholesaling, some are doing rent. I mean, there's a number of different pathways to go.
Absolutely.
And then even to seeing what best suits your temperament. Some people may want to be in real estate and not deal with certain aspects of it.
Like rehabbing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like for some people, rehabbing is like, oh my God. Like for me, I actually enjoy that. I enjoy seeing a turd and then having the vision to see the completed project and then saying, okay, boom, putting one of my teams on it. And like I had a guy today, he's like, he went by 2 houses. The one was finished. The other one was a total piece of crap. And he called me up after he got finished. He goes, man, that second house, it looked really rough. And I said, most of them all look that way.
Right.
And by the time we're done, they look like the first one you saw.
Yeah.
So I like that.
Me too.
But that goes to, being true to yourself, being honest. Like if you're not made up that way, you're going to have one heck of a time pursuing that. It's going to be a grind.
Yeah.
I mean, I truly enjoy what I do. I feel it's like a calling for me. And I think that each person has to be honest with themselves and figure it out. Now, some people may be like, I don't know. Well, a great starting point would be to go through all of the episodes that you've put out there. And each of these episodes have different focuses.
Yeah.
And so you can figure out, hey, this is what wholesaling's about. This is what renovation's about. This is what, lease options is about. And then see, what does that look like? Does it reflect like something that I would enjoy? And then from there, being able to say, like you mentioned earlier, is this something that's going to be scalable where I can actually begin to envision making an income?
Right, right.
Because I think for a lot of people, they have to switch from a job. I know when I started out, I owned a money management company, and then I began doing the real estate, and I made a transition where ultimately in 2000, I think it was in 6, I sold off my management company and just focused on the real estate full time from where we started in 2003. So for 3 years, I developed the real estate, on an after-hour basis.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people have to do. But again, that all goes into thinking about making a clear plan, getting clear in your mind about what you want to achieve. I remember, like I told you, we had anywhere from 15 to 20 projects going at a time. In 2005, I envisioned that. Like I met a guy at a Christmas party that was blowing and going. He was doing 20 projects at a time.
Yep.
Here I am fumbling around with a little couple of 2 or 3 things.
Right.
And I thought, man, that's the place I'd like to be.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
and
great.
Now,
that's great. Maybe you could, it's interesting. I actually, Matt Terrio, he's in our mastermind group, great guy. I actually was on, I was on his podcast yesterday, which is also a great podcast, Epic Real Estate Investing. Well, he asked me a question about, we were talking a little bit about, because I was what I refer to as a corporate refugee. So my wife and I left corporate America to get into real estate investing, and he was kind of talking about that story, and he asked a question, which was, how do you, there's a lot of people that want to leave, kind of maybe want to leave their job and get into this. And or why are some people not successful really making that transition from something other than real estate into real estate? And it'd be great to get your kind of opinion on that in terms of the mindset of what it is you're trying to achieve. And I'll tell you, before I kind of get some feedback from you, I'll tell you what my response was that I think that the short of it is that I think a lot of people aren't that committed. The pain's not great enough where they're at to achieve that, which a lot of that has to do with the mindset of how do I get to where I want to get to, right?
Well, and I think that that's absolutely true, that you have to have a motivating commitment and a desire. And most people are moved by two things, either pain or pleasure. And pain is usually a far greater motivator than pleasure. You know, and so it's like, is the pain of where you're at and the dissatisfaction of being in that corporate job or not having the financial freedom, is that enough to motivate the person to say, you know what, I'm going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to be consistent. Because the truth be told, a lot of people want to have the success results made easy. They want to be able to make, you know, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 by snapping their finger.
Right.
It's like, that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
You've got to be committed. There's effort. There's a lot that goes into it. And so I think that the commitment level's not there. And then the other thing I think is part of, one of the second ingredients that I see too, that was even in my life, is that being able to deal with some of the false beliefs that you have in your own life, dealing with some of the things that maybe are hindering your success. You know, and really what they boil down to is a lot of times excuses that we've created that make us feel better about why we're not achieving what we want to achieve.
Right.
You know, and again, for example, when I was going through some of the challenges in 2007 and 8, you know, we also had a ministry. I was a pastor. I'm still a pastor there. And some of that would be, I'd be looking at these challenges and I'd think, well, you know, such and such is doing this, but you know what? They don't also have a full-time ministry like I do.
Right.
Now, that was the true thing. I was helping people and doing that. We had a food pantry that helped 40,000 people over probably 4 or 5 years. But I had used that as an excuse because of certain things I didn't take action on to either, one, do, or two, fix from some of the things, you know, that were happening in the market crash.
Right.
And so, you know, that person that's in the corporate job, have they first set out a plan to say, you know, here's how I can get from here to there, and here's where there is. And then secondly, am I committed to making that happen? And then being honest about, like, okay, well, yeah, I've got a wife and 2 kids and they're in private school and I need to keep them in school. Okay, now that is a truth for that person's life, but it's also become an excuse.
Right.
It keeps them locked in saying, well, I've got it. Then know what you need to do is to figure out how to get there and replace that income and what is going to be the pathway to do it, and then be full committed to do it. And if it takes, like for me, I worked 3 years, nights and weekends. I remember one time my wife, I got a call. This was like crazy. I didn't have the right mentors at the time, right? So I'm some of my rentals, I'm doing everything.
Yeah.
I get a call at 11 o'clock at night with a toilet backed up. So I'm like loading up a snake to go over there and snake out the toilet. My wife is like, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" And now I could have had some better help and direction at the time, and I didn't. But I was committed to get where I wanted to go. And, you know, I can tell you now, like when we're sitting there in Maui, she'll be like, "Hey, I'm glad that you stuck with this," right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
you know, there's something to be said for, you know, in terms of levels of success and kind of envisioning yourself, is really trying to find a way, like you said, to replace your income.
Yeah.
So basically, most people would define financially free. It's not that you are rolling in millions of dollars necessarily. It's that you've replaced your income and your kind of lifestyle is taken care of. Therefore, you feel more comfortable. Anything above that is kind of gravy. You can make more, take more risk, make more bets, experience more things. And I think there's a lot to be said. Actually, even when I was in the corporate world, one of the C-level guys at the company I worked at said, you need to save, which was kind of hard when you work in the corporate world to, you know, to save a lot of money above what you earn, because you never really are able to make as much when you're working for somebody else, right? But he made a comment on save 1 year of your salary, and he's like, you'll never be worried about losing your job. You take more risk, you be more aggressive in everything you do. And I just kind of tucked that away. I never really thought about it until I'm self-employed and I'm able to achieve, you know, we live on a fraction of what we tend to make and things like that. And it's like, it's so much easier to not be afraid of stuff, because I know I'm covered and everything else is risk and taking time off to travel and do things like that, because you're not worried about, if I don't do something today, then I can't eat tomorrow.
Yeah. And I personally went through some of those challenges, not to that extent, but going through difficulties. And, we've always lived probably a bit below our means, and that's been a thing that has served us well. But I think that for a lot of times people don't have that in place. I mean, if they're making six figures in a corporate position, realistically, most people are spending right up to that level.
Right.
And so, again, it's like, well, holy smokes, how can I make a change? Because at the end of the month, there's nothing much left.
Right.
And that's where I think, again, you have to be honest with yourself, where you're at, looking at that, and be willing and committed to make some of the changes that may be necessary to ultimately get where, you want to go.
Right. And realistic, too. There's a guy that I mentor a number of people, and somebody that I talked to that was used to making $80,000 a year, for example.
Yeah.
And he quit that and got into real estate. And I said, well, what is it that you're trying to achieve next year? Well, I need to make $500,000. I was like, well, it's great to have a goal and shoot high and stuff like that. But, I think some people assume that people that are in real estate make so much money or have so much potential that they just set their expectations way higher to almost where they start to, in their mind, like if their goal was really to replace their income or to make 50% more than their income, it's more reasonable than out of nowhere, I've never made that much, but I want to make 5 or 6 times more than I've ever made in my life in my first year.
I would say, though, too, majority of experience is the person, they don't have the mindset and the strength and the equipping and the tools to go from the 80 to the 500.
Right, I agree with you.
There's a process that person has to do. And I think, part of that third element, I would say, is that having the model for success or having the mentorship for success.
Yeah.
Because so many times what it is I think even for me, I was guilty of this where it's like, I'm going to do it my way. Well, and it's like, even if I saw somebody that was doing it in a certain way that proved successful, I would want to put my own tweaks and spins on it.
Yeah.
And then invariably what happens is people do it their way and they don't experience the results because, you have an ability to see, okay, if somebody's doing $500,000 a year, they typically have got a model that they've developed, an approach that they've developed, like you said earlier, that's been scalable.
Right.
It's not just one person doing it. There's a system in place.
Right.
And I think that for so many people, they just kind of do a little of this, do a little of that, whatever makes money. And at the end of the day, that's not an approach that's going to yield significant results.
Right.
And so that's where I think it's important. Like you said, you mentor a couple people. I think it's super important. Like I shared, I was off track. I didn't have a lot of mentorship in the very beginning. And so I did a lot of stupid stuff that didn't yield positive results. But that's where I think now, especially with what you're doing, what we're doing, and others are doing, there is classes, courses, mentorship. There's opportunity there to learn from other people that have proven approaches, proven systems. And then, again, this goes back to, I think, dealing with some of your beliefs. What's in your ego that prevents you from just saying, oh, you know what, Mike's doing it this way or Randy's doing it this way, and it's really successful? I'm going to copy exactly what they're doing.
Right.
What is it in the ego that says, well, yeah, he's doing it that way, but then I'm going to take it and I'll do it my way.
Right, exactly.
And so that's part of being able to come to terms with yourself and these beliefs, kind of like that second point. You've got to be honest with yourself and be like, you know what? I had to do that too, because there was friends of mine in Tampa that they're crushing it. And I look at that and I'm like, well, okay, they're crushing it as things are collapsing. I'm experiencing collapse. Like, I want to crush it too.
Right.
And so I had to set my ego aside or come to understand why is that preventing me, and say, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to follow proven models. And, ultimately that's what I began doing that then helped me to quickly accelerate. I mean, we ultimately went from being in a place of being completely wiped out, bankrupt, to making $250,000 in 4 months.
That's great.
And it was a direct result of some of these principles. I mean, the market didn't change. It was still the same way that it was, but what changed was more so the approach that I was taking, the beliefs that I had, and the things that I was doing, the actions that I was taking that were actions producing positive results versus just spinning the wheel.
Right, right. Yeah, it's interesting. We know a lot of the same people. Yeah. So we're in the same mastermind group with some really successful people. And I think you would agree, I think they all would agree, that most of them just replicated what they saw somebody else doing. They didn't they didn't go out and recreate the wheel. Most of them didn't. No. At least certainly not to start. And I think that there's a lot to be said for not trying to recreate the wheel, and just it's hard for some people. It's hard for me. If you're the creative type and you always want to put your own stamp on it, it's tough. But you have to find a way to kind of set that aside whenever you can. Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing too, is you were saying that it's kind of speaks to me too, is that sometimes it's difficult for us to give up control.
Yeah.
And part of that is trusting and empowering other people. So like when you have a system or you're modeling someone else or you're being mentored, part of that is there's guys that I've had to set in place, here's the system, here's what we're going to do. We've got, 3 or 4 renovation teams going. I'm not out there, going, okay, yeah, paint this, do that. I'm entrusting them to follow the system that's there,
right?
Follow the standards that's there. And the same thing even when our office. I mean, I started off and the office was just me working out of my house. Now, of course, we've got a 2-story building, people working in the office. Everybody has to, first of all, I've got to have a system for them to follow. But secondly, I've also got to give away some control so that I can accomplish more results.
Right.
And for a lot of people, that's a tough, because, I can do it better and, want to hold on to it. It's like, well, you can only do so much.
Right. Right. Yeah. So we talked about kind of getting the right mindset and overcoming some of the obstacles and excuses we tell ourselves of why we can't be as successful as somebody else or why we don't have time to do things. And I think the third part you're going to talk about is really the systems part, about having processes in place to be successful.
Well, and I would say that the systems are critical with anything you do. So even if you're starting off, you need to look at it from a development of a system. So like, for example, marketing, I was talking to a guy that I mentored, and he was saying, well, I want to get into rehabbing. And I said, well, what's going to be your approach to getting the deals? He said, well, there's a couple of bird dogs that, are going to send me stuff, or I'm going to go to a RIA meeting. I said, well, that's great. That's fine. But how can you count on what that's going to be? That's not a real system. I said that you've got to figure out a way to begin to market to people who potentially want to sell their home. And so even in a starting phase, being able to say, okay, what's going to be my system to get houses? Now, for many people, if they're just starting off, they may not know. And that's where I think as part of the development of systems and processes, you have to say, well, I could either, one, try to figure it all out myself, which for many people, they won't be that committed and they'll just quit.
Right.
So the better thing to do is to find the person that's achieving the results you want, and then to model the systems that they have.
Right.
Or to be mentored by them and to share that. Now, I would say for most scenarios, that's going to be where people have to be willing to endure a cost.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's just part of the price of admission in anything.
That's right.
And so, but I would say this, that just like you said with our mastermind group, I've taken things not only from that, but other people that I know that are friends of mine. I've modeled something they've done, and I said, oh, hey, that would work in my business. And it cuts down the amount of time I spend, and it makes the success results get accelerated that much quicker.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I think that you have to begin to look at things and develop the systems, develop templates, because virtually everything, and you said this about real estate, everything that we do is fairly reoccurring.
Right.
I mean, all the houses may be different, but it's the same process that we do over and over again.
Absolutely, yeah. You still put a lockbox on the door, and you still pull it off when you're done.
Absolutely. So, I mean, just for that as an example, we have an entire checklist process from start to finish that somebody other than myself does. That they, that's the whole, they start at this point and it goes check, 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 check.
Yeah, we do too.
Including putting the lockbox on the property, taking all the pictures, and then at the end when it's sold, how do we get the lockbox off the property, the sign out of the yard, all that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and that's part of that process. I would say that many people starting off have never taken the time to, develop it. And they would say, well, I'm the one doing it. Well, you want to develop that into a system that then you could give to somebody else.
Right.
I have
the challenge is, like you said, you don't, if you don't develop these processes and don't put these systems in place, then you're never going to get yourself out of the doing role, having to do everything as an owner.
Yeah, that's right.
And also when you lose somebody, if you lose somebody on your team or you have an opening and then somebody else comes in, many times if you have that process in place, you can hand it over and they can run with it, usually, maybe a few questions. Otherwise, you're probably still going to be doing it for a while because you don't have the time to train them to do it because you're out running around doing it.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like when in a real way, when we had the $5 million rental company, the only real system in that thing was me verbally telling people what to do.
Yeah.
That was a terrible system. I woke up and I'm like, holy smokes, this sucks.
Yeah.
Because I would have to tell people over and over again. And so when I came to that realization, I was like, well, I've got to create systems for people to follow.
Right.
And, majority of the information was up here. And so I took this headset, bam, Dragon voice software, and just started creating the systems. And then, as I got those laid out, then I gave it over to another team member and said, okay, here, add to this, refine it, improve it. So that was the beginning stage of it. So, if a person's out there now listening and they're doing it, you want to begin to think, how can I create this to be a system? And even if I'm the one, running around putting a lockbox on, how do I create that and then see where somebody else could do it?
Right.
Because again, to get to any reasonable scale, like the guy who wanted to get to 500,000, you're not going to get to 500,000 running around doing all that stuff yourself.
Snaking toilets yourself, yeah.
No, yeah. Well, see, and now again, I didn't have good mentorship.
Yeah.
To somebody to smack me and say, Randy, for God's sakes, man, what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's true in this business. We very, in any small business, but certainly in our business, you never are able to afford redundancy and backup people. So you've always got to be willing to step in and do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
And so, I get it.
Yeah, I know. Well, it is. My thing, I would say, for the person who's listening, whether they're a new person or an existing person, that you really got to begin to develop your focus as a real business owner.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to have a business, that's what it's going to take. It's going to require systems. It's going to require other people to be able to work with you. And I would say the fastest track to be able to get there is to take outside information, outside people that have succeeded in the exact thing you want to do, and really model that.
Yeah.
That's going to cut down a lot of headaches, a lot of heartache, and it's going to accelerate the success that you want.
Yeah, I think the three kind of areas of the framework you gave, having the right mindset, kind of overcoming some of those obstacles or excuses you make in systems, really you can replicate what other people are doing in all those areas. The obstacles one is more of, I think there's so many of us out there, and we probably you probably say this to people too, is where you say, if I can do it, you can do it,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's nobody here that is like some born, rocket scientist that this is not that hard of a business. It's more of a hustle business than anything. And if you worked hard enough and were committed to it, we all had obstacles to overcome. So nobody listening to this should think that their obstacles are so big they can't be overcome.
Absolutely, 100%. I would agree with you. And
yeah.
I just encourage the listeners that are on this episode, take the actions necessary. Believe in yourself and know that it's possible. If Mike can do it, I can do it, and the other 160 preceding interviews could do it.
Yeah.
Then you could do it too. Because again, it's just it's not that we are been so gifted by God that we're the special chosen few.
Yeah.
It's available for you. You've got to believe in it for yourself and be willing to move forward and make it happen.
Absolutely, I agree. But Randy, don't take anything away from yourself, my friend. You're very special.
Yeah, I appreciate that, brother, as well. Thank you.
Hey, any kind of final words of wisdom you want to share with on the show here?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say for the folks that are listening, connect together with the right people. I mean, you've got connected already here with Mike and the team at FlipNerd, and that's a great connection. You want to find the people that are doing what you want to do and make that connection, because those connections are going to be invaluable to help you. I would say this, the 5 people that you surround yourself with, that's going to be the emulation of the results that you achieve and you receive in your life.
Yeah.
So, make it a point to connect with the right people. And I look forward to, being a channel of help to those folks that are listening.
Thanks, Randy. And for those that want to hunt you down, they want to find out how to get a hold of you, where do they go?
Well, I would say, probably the best place, hit me up on Facebook, and they could do that through Randy Lawrence or through Freedom and Wealth Acceleration System, which is one of our pages on Facebook. And, from there, they can connect together with us. And, we've got additional content and things coming out that can be a help, and, mindset principles that will help you achieve what you want.
That's great. That's great. We'll get those links from you and get them down below the video here for anybody that wasn't able to catch those. We'll have them there for you. So, okay. Randy, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you so much, Mike. Have an awesome day.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence, where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market? You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit FlipNerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to FlipNerd.com.